Welcome in, Vegas insider Todd Fuhrman and the Wizard of Odds, Kenny White. The AFC title game runs through Kansas City for a fourth straight season. Big question, will the Grim Reaper collect the souls of Cincinnati and cover the spread, or do you make a play on the total? It's 54.5. Kenny and Todd both had the over in the Chiefs' soul-crushing win over Buffalo last week. Kenny, are you looking at the total in the AFC title game?
I lean to the over in the total in this game, but I like the side a lot better. I like the Chiefs. I'm laying the 7 with the Chiefs. And the reason why, it's really all about my power ratings and the strength of these two football teams. I have the Chiefs a 6.5 point better football team, and I've got their home field worth 3.5 points in the playoffs. Travel for the Bengals is tough. I'm not going to factor in any experience edge for the Chiefs. But there's a giant edge in experience. Their fourth straight game in this situation in the AFC Championship with the Bengals, first time there. So I think there's a big difference in talent. I think the Bengals were fortunate to get the Raiders, a below-average team, in their first game in the playoffs. And they were fortunate to get the fraudulent number 1 seed in Tennessee in the second round as well, because Tennessee 19th in DVOA ratings. I got them 10th best in the NFL, not number 1. And also bringing back Derrick Henry. Bogged down their offense a little bit. He was a step slow and hurt them, and 3 interceptions from Tannehill. So I think the Chiefs are a far better football team. I think they win by double digits.
Patrick Mahomes, 7-1 at home in his playoff career, with his teams averaging 36.5 points per game in those games. And that supports Todd's pick. Gave it to us on Thursday, taking the Chiefs team total over 31. So we've got that, Todd. Where do you expect the spread to close come Sunday afternoon?
I think with what we've seen so far, Akeem, there's no reason to believe that this game won't leak up to 7.5 at most books, especially those that are dealing to a slightly more recreational customer base as well. Because if there's no appetite right now for the Bengals at 7, you at least have to dangle the carrot out there at 7.5. And kind of piggybacking on Kenny's point, I mean, I made the number substantially more than what the market's offering up at this point as well. And we did see a handful of books open 6.5. That number didn't last. I think you're going to see this number to continue to move. So if you like Kansas City, bet them now, and maybe even consider buying from 7 down to 6.5 to get it off that key number.
Well, Patrick Mahomes, a magician out there. So there are a handful of player props to watch for Kansas City's QB. Todd, what's a top player prop you like for Mahomes?
So for me, I looked at the passing touchdowns, I looked at the yardage in a lot of the more traditional markets, and I thought most of them were relatively fair. The one concern I had about Mahomes' passing yards is if I think Kansas City plays with a lead, do they take the air out of the ball in the fourth quarter? But one area where I think Patrick Mahomes will excel against the Bengals defense that leaves a lot to be desired is in the interception category. And I'll lay the price at minus $1.35 that Patrick Mahomes does not throw an interception this Sunday against the Bengals. You look at what Cincinnati does. They have one pass rusher in Trey Hendrickson that can really bring pressure. But for the most part this postseason, Mahomes is reminding us why he is the best quarterback in the National Football League. He hasn't thrown one pass in the first 2 games that grades out as interceptable. I think when you're looking at Kansas City, they've been extremely methodical. They're not taking deep shots. He didn't have one pass against the Bills that was more than 20 yards downfield. I think you're talking about him being diligent again in his study leading up to the game, and he's going to make sure he makes the safe throws. I'll bet that Patrick Mahomes does not throw an interception on Sunday.
Yeah, I like that a lot, Todd. I don't think he throws one either, but I'm going to go over his rushing yards, over 29.5. Last 6 games, his median number is 30.5. That's 5 regular season games that Mahomes is not going to get out and run like he will in playoff games. We saw what he did last week and against the Buffalo Bill team, who's solid against the run and stopping quarterbacks that are very mobile. He got 69 yards last week. In the playoffs, when it counts and your back's to the wall, there's no tomorrow. Patrick Mahomes is going to take his team to the playoffs, whether it's running or throwing. So over the yardage for Patrick.
Yeah, he went over his player prop rushing yards on their first drive. I mean, that might have been the easiest prop that anyone's cashed in the history of NFL playoff games. That was ridiculous. I had Devin Singletary total yards. I thought I was going to hit that. He had 41 yards total on the first drive, and then he finished with like 55. So I lost in that. But I had the over thanks to you two fine gentlemen. All right, let's get your top Joe Burrow prop. Burrow outdueled Mahomes in Week 17, 30-39, 446, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Todd, what's the Burrow prop that you're targeting?
You know, this one's a little bit scary, Hakeem, because I do believe that the Bengals are going to be playing from behind. But I'm going to go under Joe Burrow passing yards in this particular ball game. And when I look at the Kansas City Chiefs defense, they were embarrassed in the game that we saw week 17. They blew a 28-10 lead. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase over and over and over again. I think Steve Spagnuolo knows that he's got to try and neutralize Chase in the passing game and force any other Bengal in the aerial assault to beat him. The other thing that we saw last week against the Tennessee Titans is that the Bengals couldn't protect Joe Burrow. We know he was sacked 9 times. And while Kansas City doesn't provide nearly the same ferocious pass rush, I do think they're going to force Burrow to get the ball out of his hands quickly. So with the Kansas City Chiefs getting healthier in their defensive backfield, with the return of Rashad Fenton after missing the first 2 playoff games, and Honey Badger expected to be out there, I think Joe Burrow is going to struggle to flirt with 300 yards passing this weekend. So I'm going to fade the stock at the top of the market and go under his yardage total.
Yeah, I'm gonna go over with him, but it's not. I don't have a big difference on this game. The one thing that swayed me was the last 6 games, 348 yards is his median number, and it's late in the year. We see the passing game, everything's coming together, but 2 things: one's got to give, or both have had to improve. Todd mentioned the secondary for the Kansas City Chiefs was embarrassed last week, and I do believe in teams that are embarrassed in a certain section, they do improve, but they need Tyrann Mathieu back if they're going to improve there. Cincinnati's offensive line was terrible, and they were embarrassed with 9 sacks. But I've seen this many times in college and the NFL where those lines can improve. The schemes have to change. The passing game has to change. The game plan changes, and that's what Todd said. A little bit shorter passing game for Burrow, but boy, when you got the weapons that he has with Chase and T. Higgins and Boyd, even their tight end is outstanding. I think he's going to get the yards, and a big factor is I do think Kansas City will have a 2 to 3 touchdown lead in this football game, and Burrow will be playing from behind most of the game.
Let's think back to that first matchup. A combined 65 points were scored, 5 different players finding the end zone. Jamar Chase with 3 TDs of his own for the Bengals. Kenny, what's your best wager of who will score a TD in this rematch?
Yeah, there are a lot of players. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, too, besides the total says it is. I want to try to find somebody with high odds. And I think Patrick Mahomes leaves the pocket enough in this game to really make himself an important factor. I took him as an anytime touchdown score at plus 260. He knows how to find the end zone, and I think he will in this game.
I like where you're going, Kenny. When you talk about Patrick Mahomes and his willingness to run as the games mean a heck of a lot more, it wouldn't shock me either if he scored the first touchdown of the game if they have a goal-to-go situation. But I'm going to go with one of his backfield mates that'll also be wearing a red jersey for the Kansas City Chiefs, and it won't be Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It'll be the new toy in this Chiefs offense that we've seen emerge over the last 2 playoff games, and that would be Jerick McKinnon at a shade less than 2-1. McKinnon's a guy that was highly touted. You saw that the 49ers spent a ton of money to try and bring him in San Francisco. Just couldn't stay healthy, but he's reminding us now how explosive he can be, not only as a runner, but also as a receiver. He gives the Chiefs a weapon that I think can catch a short pass and take it for a long gain. I think Jerick McKinnon will feature prominently as the Chiefs make multiple trips into the red zone. I'll take his price at plus $1.75.
All right, Kenny, package it up, put a bow on it for us. What is your all-on-the-line wager for the AFC title game?
Yeah, I'm going over 10 points in the first quarter in this game. Kansas City, number 2 in the NFL in first quarter points, 7.2 a game. They're 11-8 over in the first quarter this year, but more importantly, 4-1 over their last 5. The Bengals 3-1-1 over in the first quarter, their last 5 games. They're number 14 in first quarter points. So I think it gets started in a hurry in this game, and both teams score in the first quarter. Hopefully they're both touchdowns.
You just made that play for me. That feels like you were just talking to me first quarter play. I mean, you know how much of a degenerate I am on first quarter plays in the NBA, and now you really got me going here. Wow, I like that a lot, Kenny. All right, let's get to your favorite correlated parlay for the AFC title game. In other words, a same-game parlay. Could go the traditional route of a side and a total, an over or under, or you get a little more crafty. Todd, what do you have for us?
Yeah, I'm going to tie up 4 legs here, and I know the first things you guys will think is, well, one of the legs is somewhat counterintuitive when you're making a case for Joe Burrow's yardage to go under. But we can start with the side and total. I'll take the Chiefs' money line as my primary building block. I'll use the Chiefs' team total over 31 as well. To Kenny's point, I think the Chiefs score early, they score often, and we can't ignore that they had 28 points at halftime against the Bengals last time around, just 3 possessions in the second half, and that's why they came up a bit short. I'll take Joe Burrow over his passing attempts. We've seen him operate a lot more from single back sets, and I think the check down game will give him an opportunity to throw the ball early and often. And Joe Mixon has kind of been the forgotten man as a rusher. We haven't seen him prove to be the explosive force he was early in the year. Some of that is his responsibility, but a lion's share falls on an offensive line that's really failed him in run blocking. I think Mixon can add value as a receiver, so I'll use his rushing yards under as the fourth leg of my single game parlay.
I'm going to go with Chiefs. I'll lay the 7 in the football game, and I'm going to add Patrick Mahomes 2.5 touchdowns, over 2.5. His median number of the last 6 games is 3, and if they're going to cover 7, he better throw 3 touchdowns and run at least 1 in this game. Joe Burrow over a half of interception. We're going to need a turnover as well to help this game. Turnovers are nice. I'll take as many as I can get for the Chiefs in this one. So yeah, that's my 3-teamer. Chiefs, Mahomes over touchdown passes, Burrow over interceptions.
Kenny White, Todd Fuhrman with a full wagering breakdown of the AFC title game. Men, thanks. Let's take a look back at those parlays as got some nice juicy odds here as well. Here's a look back at Kenny's Chiefs to cover the 7, Mahomes over 2.5 passing touchdowns, and for Burrow to throw at least 1 interception, pays out at plus 375. Here's a look at Todd's. A couple more legs in his parlay. Likes the Chiefs on the money line. Team total over 31, 31.5, depending on the book. Joe Mixon under 55.5 rushing yards. And also, he's got Joe Burrow's passing attempts as well, over 38.5, that pay out at plus 812.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.